What I've got for you today is a best-of-3 series of top-level StarCraft 2 where the #1 Protoss in the world is taking on the #1 Zerg. So spawning right here in the top left-hand corner in game #1 on the map Babylon. Playing with the red Protoss probes from Denmark, we have MaxPax. And his opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Zerg drones. He's from Finland and he goes by the name of Serral. Serral once again opening up with the extractor trick, so once again opening up with the 15 supply hatchery, rather than what has become the standard over the years, right? 16 supply hatch has always been the norm, but recently Serral has been mixing it up, going for an extractor trick, then going for a hatchery, and then eventually an overlord as well. And it turns out that on most maps you can get away with a hatchery first, even if the scouting probe gets sent out right at the very start of the game. Alrighty, so what exactly is going to be the strategy right here from MaxPax? So, when it comes to both of these players' playstyles, right, I wouldn't really say that either of them really has any significant weakness. But overall, I would say that MaxPax is incredibly good offensively, and Serral is incredibly good defensively. I think this is going to be an interesting clash. We don't really see these two play against each other very often. Obviously, MaxPax doesn't really play offline tournaments. Serral doesn't really play online tournaments. And because of that, yeah, even though they do compete in the same region of the world, they don't really face off against each other nearly as often as I would personally like. And obviously, well, Serral has been at this level for a very long time, whereas MaxPax, he's, at least in StarCraft terms, okay? This game has been around for a very long time. He's just arrived. Stargate opener here. MaxPax walling himself in fully. I thought maybe he was just trying to... Okay. Oh, that was the Stargate right over here. I was gonna say, that makes no sense. Okay, apparently the Stargate is in the main base. He just was making that structure over here to prevent the links from coming in. I was gonna suggest that he would do that, and then he did it, and then I realized, wait, the Stargate isn't actually cancelled. I'm recording this video very early in the morning today, so if I seem a little slow, that's because I have to go out and meet family in about 2 hours from now. So I figured, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna set my alarm like an hour earlier than I normally do. I'm gonna drink coffee, and then I'm immediately gonna record a video. So if my voice sounds even worse than per usual, maybe I sound real smooth in the morning. Welcome to Lowko. Lowko Before Breakfast, a new television show. Sounds pretty sick, dude. Anyways, if I do sound a little bit different, or if I'm a little bit slower and I assume gateways are Stargates, that's the reason as to why. But I'm sure we'll get this fixed by the time we get to game #2. Maybe. Potentially. Hopefully. Alrighty. MaxPax actually saving oracles? I mean, yeah, Serral's pretty good now at this scouting thing, huh? He actually pulled back that overlord so fast that MaxPax did not see the overlord, but the overlord did see MaxPax. So that Stargate has been spotted at this point. And that is, well, not really gonna catch Serral off guard anymore. That being said though, Serral's very good at that early game defense, but oracles, well, it's very difficult to control against those units perfectly. We'll be seeing them fly across the map here momentarily. So, it's gonna be 4 adepts in total. 2 oracles. Are we gonna go for another one? Not just yet. 4 adepts is actually kind of a lot. Well, Serral sees this coming in again from a mile away. At this point, he's got one lonely little Zergling. He's gonna need a few friends. They are coming up right now. Okay, we're just gonna go for a revelation here for the time being. So a little bit of energy gone right there to get a few of those creep tumors. Here we go. This is where the drone sniping starts. 2 workers so far. Nothing to write home about. Excellent defense right here from Serral. Yep. I mean, maybe he's lost... Ooh, are we gonna go for a Queen March? Really? At least put down a tumor on your way out, me. Yeah, there we go. Okay. We're gonna go for a Queen March. Serral taking a page out of Dark's book. This is something that Dark's been playing all the time lately. And I think usually Dark does this whenever he's in like a desperate scenario and it's like, okay, I've got no chance to really do it. But in more reliable games, he seems to do it whenever Protoss is playing a little bit too greedy early on and they don't really deal any damage whatsoever. And this is certainly one of those games. Now, one of the queens is gonna get stuck. Brenda's not the brightest, okay? Bright Brenda was not her name. This is actually kind of rough. This is delaying the entire attack by like 5 seconds, and you really are on a timer here. Anyways, no real damage done here by MaxPax. Does that mean that Serral can just overwhelm him with Zerglings and Banelings? Well, in Serral's mind, at the very least, this is going to be able to deal critical amounts of damage. Banelings here going after the pylon and whatever Protoss unit they can catch. So far, only 1 worker has gone down here. Oracles are starting to fall as well, and this 3rd base is in a little bit of trouble. Queens are, they're arriving a little late to the party. Keep in mind, with the new multiplayer balance patch, which at this point is like 9 months old, those queens cannot actually transfuse anymore off creep. There's the battery overcharge. Lovely work here by MaxPax. He's actually just trying to buy as much time as possible. It doesn't really matter so much how many workers he loses, as long as he keeps this Nexus alive. I think he can recover. Because if you look at the worker count right now at the bottom of the screen, there's really not that much available here for the Zerg. This is, for all intents and purposes, an all-in. Man, imagine if Serral could actually transfuse with these queens, though. So obviously, you could bring a Dropper Lord, you could obviously try a bunch of stuff. But the thing is, this is a hatchery-based attack. There's no lair here for Serral. Oracles at this point have run out of energy. So the Lynx are just going to town. He needs to wait a little bit longer until he can reactivate the Pulsar Beam. One Oracle just popped out of that Stargate, and I do think he's actually going to be able to clean all of this up relatively smoothly. Okay. That's actually the first time in a long while where I do not see a Queen Zergling Baneling push just straight up win the game. I feel like every single game where I've seen Dark go for this attack on this particular map, he's won. Even when he's like 10 workers behind and he hasn't really been, you know, doing a particularly good job defending against that early game Protoss aggression. Clean defense right here by MaxPax. Clean with a little asterisk right next to it. Sure, he lost a lot of probes, but as long as he keeps the majority of his Nexi alive, life is pretty good here. So at this point, we're talking 57, 59 probes right now versus 52 drones on the side of the Zerg. Oracles with the counterattack. I think the key for a lot of this defense is keeping these Oracles alive, right? If one of those Oracles earlier... I really need some water, man. the high notes are not hitting. If one of those no, we're not gonna go full Mickey Mouse here. If one of those Oracles would have gone down earlier, I've got a feeling that, yeah, he would not have been able to defend against all of those Lynx. They're a critical unit, but also, you know, very easy to lose them, right? They're kind of like paper planes. Very easy to accidentally overextend, think you can get that final drone, and then, well, you end up losing the Oracles instead. The counterattack from the Zerg is lethal. MaxPax is doing a little bit of spring cleaning. The man's so good at microing Stalkers. I know this sounds like such a basic skill that you would expect all of the top-level Protoss players to have, but MaxPax genuinely best Stalker control in the game right now. Yeah, in the past we had Parting. Now Parting is doing his mandatory military service. Hero obviously very good as well, but I am, especially in the Protoss versus Terran matchup, like that Stalker Prism control from MaxPax is on another level. And these, by the way, are the types of games where I really feel like Max can actually prove himself, right? So, we all know that MaxPax is good, but is he Serral levels of good? Because especially the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, Serral has looked near unbeatable for really like 5 years now. I mean, there are of course series where he does lose and maps here and there, but in general, Serral's Zerg versus Protoss, it's probably his best matchup, I would say. It looks incredible. So far though, this game has been going MaxPax's way. And you'll love to see that. Stalkers just keep on poking. Blinking back whatever one is most exposed. There's another stasis ward. Lovely work. Alrighty. Yeah, he's relentless with these units. And I actually think that's probably the key, right? It's so easy to accidentally start, well, losing Stalkers. And then once again, just like with the Oracle shenanigans I just talked about, the Zerg counterattack is brutal. But if you keep on microing these units well, and you don't get them all surrounded, generally, yep, you can indeed keep on gaining value. It's really easy, though, to accidentally get overwhelmed. At this point, +1 melee is done right here for the Zerg. Baneling speed is not too far behind either. He's got himself an infestation pit coming up. 5th hatchery, all the way in the top right. A little bit of a Baneling roll-by here, at least attempted, but there's no Baneling speed yet, and by the time that upgrade finishes, these Banes are gonna be dead, because 2 of them already got scouted. Although, in the meantime, like I said, I'm a little slow. We did have more Banelings on the left side, and this completely justifies the early game for Serral. MaxPax has been doing a phenomenal job dealing with that early game army from the Zerg, dealing with the Queen March. He's been then poking and prodding with his Stalkers and his Oracles. He handled the very first Baneling walk-by perfectly, but then the second one came out of nowhere, man. Straight through the center of the middle of the map, a bit strange. We don't normally see the Baneling roll-by coming in from there. Serral, by the way, going for a hive here at the 3rd. That is interesting. Still though, worker-wise, I mean, considering he just lost 19 probes, MaxPax not even in that bad of a spot. Those oracles are putting in so much work. 9, 13, 5, and how much is this one? Okay, 5 as well. I guess they've mostly bruised a lot of units then, right? Anyways, here's another little Zergling run by. The hatchery in the top right did get spotted. And this one's actually kind of far out there. It's kind of difficult for the Zerg player to protect this, especially when the bases aren't yet connected with creep. The hatchery may actually be in some trouble. MaxPax starting up the multitasking right now. Can he stay up to speed right here with Serral? He's seen the timing and the location of the next, or the Protoss next, the Zerg next, the lair over here, right? He's seen the timing of the hive. And because of that, he is thinking, yo, what if I just get that structure? Zealot warp in here in the main base. Suddenly there's chaos everywhere. Banelings over here. We do have the Zealots in the top right getting cleaned up. Zealots in the main base will also get cleaned up eventually. Serral's like, yo, bro, you're testing me? I will just overwhelm you with stuff if you're not careful. There's that final Baneling too. It does have +2 finishing up right now, but the probes are nowhere to be seen. And with +2, of course, it would have one-shotted those workers. Ooh, nice corrosive ball there, Serral. On his own Zerglings. In the meantime, +3/+3 has been fired up right here for MaxPax. That's actually insane. The fact that he's got +3/+3 going here during all of this is insanely good. Man, if he didn't actually lose 19 workers earlier, I think this game would be over. That's honestly the only thing that Serral's got going for himself, and that's obviously a thing that would have been very preventable, right, for MaxPax. You love to see it, man. Look at him. He didn't have a blink available on those stalkers. Turns out, well, you can just pick them up in the prism instead. Blink. Oh, yes, he actually baits all of those roaches and ravagers to walk into the ravagers' biles. MaxPax going after the hive. Yeah, that hive is dead. In the meantime, by the way, we once again... I don't want to talk about it, guys. Like I said, I'm a little slow, okay? While this base is being targeted over here, these guys are also microing on the other side of the map. Well, Serral anyways is. And he killed another 13 workers. Okay. So 49 workers were killed by Serral in this game. 50 right now. That's pretty sick. We have a little bit more aggression over here as well. The Zealots should be able to push all of that back, but... Man, imagine if he actually did, like, half of that amount of workers and damage in this game so far. It would genuinely be over, and I honestly think this is still an excellent game right here for MaxPax, despite the fact that he had some Banelings rolling into his bases. Adrenal Glands is finishing up, though. That's gonna give those Zerglings about a 40% attack speed improvement, which is tremendous. You gotta be very careful. Zealot run by, top right hand corner. Baneling roll by, left side of the map. Okay, will these be countered? Well, if it's up to that Zealot, he would sacrifice himself for ire. But that's an additional 9 probes going down. Yeah, I think MaxPax is getting outplayed a little bit as far as the actions per minute goes, right? So, he's doing a great job in this game, but you can see that Serral is just a little bit faster overall. I think he's actually better at controlling his stalkers and his, well, oracles here. Still has all of those oracles alive. When he can put all of his focus on one fight, suddenly life is pretty good. But when he's forced to defend at home at the same time and look for those little dots on the minimap and react to those in time, I mean, he catches about, I would say 75% of them, but turns out Zerg only really needs a few of those roll-bys to justify it. Now, this is about half of the Zerg army here in the top corner of the map. Serral getting a little too adventurous off creep, and with the hive gone, he decides to tap out. Excellent game right there from MaxPax. You know why it's so exciting? There's a couple of reasons as to why. First off, Protoss doesn't really win a whole lot of premier tournaments. I don't say that to really start a balanced discussion or anything like that, but it's a matter of fact, Protoss doesn't really win a whole lot of premier tournaments. In general, the top level players in StarCraft 2, we've seen most of them compete for at least 5 years, right? If we're talking about the Serrals, the Raynors, the Marus, the Clems, right? The Heroes, all of those guys, most of them, yeah, you've probably, if you've been watching StarCraft 2 for at least a few years, you've probably seen them ever since you first started watching. MaxPax, however, at least in StarCraft 2 terms, is still a relative newcomer. Now, I say that even though he's statistically the highest ranked Protoss in the world, I say that because I don't believe that he's actually peaked yet. So in that previous game, it was very obvious that he was incredibly good at just microing basic Protoss units. So notice, he wasn't actually transitioning towards anything. He was just playing Stalkers, Zealots, Oracles, and a Warp Prism, right? That was basically the entire game for him. He wasn't transitioning towards anything else. The only thing that really went wrong for him in that previous match was those Baneling roll-bys. But despite the fact that he lost like, what, 50 workers, he still won that game? If MaxPax would tighten up his early game defense, or his mid game defense, I guess is a better way to call it, just a little bit, and he would lose, you know, maybe a third of that amount of workers, that previous game would have been utter Protoss domination. And I don't think that MaxPax has peaked yet. I think he's gonna get better over time. Now, to discuss balance for just a little bit, right? So this has been something that people have been debating for a very long time. Protoss, when it comes to Premier Tournament victories over the last few years, has, well, significantly less wins than Terran and then Zerg, right? The problem is, though, right, when we're discussing those sorts of statistics, is that, yeah, Protoss doesn't win as many tournaments, and maybe that means that Protoss is underpowered at the highest level of play. But the guys that do win tournaments, it is quite literally a sample size of like 4 or 5 players. And it could perfectly be that those players just chose not to play Protoss, right? And considering MaxPax doesn't play offline tournaments, at least not just yet, I really hope, again, that he reconsiders. I've rambled about that in previous videos. I don't really want to get into it again, but I really hope one day MaxPax decides to participate in Premier events. Because I genuinely believe he's one of the very few players in the world that can actually compete with the guys at the top level. And that may very well be, you know, the statistical outlier that we need here. Because really the guys that are winning tournaments, we're talking about Maru and Serral primarily, right? They're the ones winning the majority of the tournaments. And yeah, you don't really need that many players for that data to... And plus on top of that, my final little asterisk right next to this balance discussion, you can fight it out in the comments section, okay, if you want to. So we do have a Glaive Depth opener, by the way. But final little caveat, I do believe that, yeah, the very best Protoss players in the world that we've had, at least over the years, the majority of them are doing their mandatory military service over in South Korea, which really doesn't help much either. But, I mean, when it comes to top-level players, the guys that have consistently won tournaments over the years, yeah, it's really only Terrans and Zergs, which is kind of interesting. Double Stargate on the back of this Glaive the Depth opener right here from MaxPax. Now, that's interesting. So, he's gotten scouted. We saw that Zergling getting into the opponent's main base. Serral has already run the drones away from the third. He doesn't actually have that many workers here to begin with. So, yeah, Serral right now a little bit concerned for a potential Dark Templar follow-up, right? So that's why he's got a Spore Crawler over here out front. He needs some sort of detection. He sees the lack of a third Nexus here as well. That one should be taken within the next 15 seconds or so in a normal game. I think it's going to be difficult for the Zerg to figure out exactly what he's playing against. So worker-wise, Serral at this point is... Oh, it's gonna be Phoenixes? Okay. I mean, I guess that makes some sort of sense, but I have not seen Mass Stargate Phoenix in... Well, I honestly think most of 2023. Maybe 1 or 2 games. But not usually at this level of play. Okay. So, Phoenixes are pretty decent. They're actually a fantastic unit when controlled well. But much like Adepts, they tend to fall off. When the Zerg army gets bigger, Adepts don't really do a whole lot of damage anymore, and the same can be said for Phoenixes. Yeah, they're very good, but they're not really a game-winning unit, right? So usually you will have to transition away towards something else. Now, when do we spring the surprise? When do we spring the trap? When do we decide, okay, it's time to show the Phoenixes to the opponent? Serral at this point has no clue, by the way. He's going into, yeah, he doesn't even have a Spore Crawler in the main base. He's going into a Baneling Nest. Lair's finishing up right now. We'll probably see the Roach Speed upgrade fired up shortly. There it is. He's just playing a Roach Ravager Ling Bane based mid-game. Something he's been playing for a very long time. Okay, this is the moment. 6 Phoenixes with Phoenix number 7 and 8 coming up. So there are a lot of queens available. We've currently got 6 queens. Is that enough? I think you just fly by them. Yeah, just go into the main base. So Phoenixes are actually very tanky units. I mean, I mentioned earlier that Oracles are paper planes. These guys, they look like paper planes, but they're actually a little tankier than an Oracle. They actually have quite a little bit of HP. Now the Adepts also are shading forward, by the way. Good crisis management by Serral, as to be expected. But yeah, we can start picking up full energy queens here. MaxPax. I'm casting this series with a big smile, man. MaxPax, please play offline tournaments. I don't know if you're ever watching any of these videos. I'm sure you got a good reason, man, but as a StarCraft fan, it'd be so sick. It'd be so sick. Okay, more queens are dying. I mean, there is energy available for transfusions, but look at the Phoenixes, man. They're... Okay, that one was microed a little too late, but they're so tanky. We're actually just doubling down on the Phoenix production. Really? Okay, well, here's a Roach attack, and this is what I'm a little scared for. So, Phoenixes can only do their Graviton lift whenever they have energy available, and there is energy available. But is there enough energy available to lift up all of the Roaches? Normally this is a Zergling follow-up on the back of it too. I mean, that Immortal and that Stalker are helping out quite a bit too. Oh my god. Is Serral just getting outplayed? That is not something we've really seen. Like, Serral loses, but outplayed? That's not really a word we would use very often. Nah, I actually don't think he's getting outplayed here. That Roach attack, even though he ends up losing all the units, it was the correct call. Now the Phoenixes once again are on the other side of the map. But Serral does have 77 Zerg probes. He's got 77 drones right now. Maybe I should just default to workers, huh? That's probably an easier way. That would prevent that whole problem, Lowko. Anyways, he does have 77 workers right now, which is significantly more than the Protoss. And even though he didn't lose all of those Roaches, it's not like this is really an army that can go in for the win, right? So it's not really like you have to worry about a retaliation after you poke the bear. It's like, no, the bear's just gonna take the poking. He might take down your army too, but he doesn't swipe back, other than with the Phoenixes. So we're just transitioning towards Archon Immortal Zealot? That's the plan? That surprises me a little. Main issue with this is that the upgrades for Protoss is gonna be, they're gonna be quite far behind. Zerg is already firing up 2-2, or, well, +2, and then the +1 armor upgrade. But maybe more importantly, he's gone up towards the Hive, and the Hive is gonna enable even more powerful upgrades, like, for example, the Adrenal Glands. So if he's gonna stick around on Lingbane for a long time, yep, there it is, Adrenal Glands does get started here by Serral. I actually think he's gonna be okay. He still doesn't really have a reliable answer right here, though, against those Phoenixes. This may actually be a first sign of MaxPax reinventing the meta a little bit. So I would say the Mass Stalker Zealot-based armies that he really enjoys playing. I think that style, both in Protoss versus Terran as well as in Protoss versus Zerg, has been popularized by Hero. Now, this is by no means a strategy that's, like, new. But Glaive to Depth into double Stargate Phoenix is really not something I've seen in years. I mean, in the previous patch, we used to see a lot of Massive Void Ray play. MaxPax never seemed to be a big fan of that. Nowadays, though, we're doing something a little bit different. Okay, so we do have a second Robo facility. We're going into Colossi. Okay, I actually thought this was going to be for Disruptors. We're gonna go into Colossus together with Storm. So we're going into a Spire of his own. I wonder if this means that he needs to add on some Vipers. Vipers would be amazing against Robo Bay play, but yeah, he does fire up a couple Vipers right now. The problem is that when there's 9 Phoenixes out, that's a Ravager going down. These Phoenixes have been insane, guys. 20 workers have gone down, but on top of that, a whole lot of other units too. 9 queens. Not bad, eh? Okay, so I think this could just be for a potential Corrupted transition, because Serral doesn't really know exactly what's going on. Like, Phoenixes have been denying most scouting information for a while, so all he knows is that there's gonna be a Skytles army on the back of this. Instead, the Stargates have been abandoned for the time being, and MaxPax is not producing out of them. So maybe that's why we see the Spire. It could also just be Corruptors to fight all of those Phoenixes back. Or he could morph it into a greater Spire and then think about going Brute Lords later. Prism once again in the bottom of the map. This is another thing where a couple Corruptors would be incredibly helpful. Big Zealot army here at the bottom. Problem is though, normally these fights go really well for Protals, but now we're talking about Adrenal Glands Zerglings, right? So it still goes pretty well for Protals, mostly because of the positioning. But yeah, Adrenal Glands Zerglings here do not mess around. This is a very strange unit composition. Did the Prism go down, by the way? Prism must have just gotten sniped. Hold up. What exactly happened to that Prism? Ah! Abduction into about a dozen queens. I see. So that Prism was certainly an important part to this particular army. Is the main force here, though, of MaxPax good enough? This is really like a complete 180 from the previous game's unit composition, right? Good split right over there on that Phoenix. I am not convinced that this army is going to win the game without a Prism. So the Zealots are coming in right now from the left side of the map. Zerglings going in for the counter-attack as well. Good storms here are going to be a necessity. Okay. Whoa. Those are walking storms. Can we get some force fields? We did have a... okay, we did have a... I don't like this attack. Nah. We did have a sentry there in the mix. Maybe with Zealots in the main base, you know? Maybe with Zealots in the main base and Serral being forced to split off half his army to try and deal with that run-by. Yeah, no. This wasn't the attack. This wasn't the attack. No. Stellar defense right here from Serral. Incredibly well done, of course. Dealing with multiple fires at the same time is very difficult. And still lining up these attacks as well. I mean, he's ready to kill the probes that he's already killed earlier. Yeah. He's scouting right now to see if there's workers to even make this roll-by worth his while. He's like, nah, there's not enough. I need more, man. I'm just gonna sit out here. There will be more probes before too long. I mean workers before too long. Loco. Idiot. Do it. Just say the word worker rather than... Okay, here comes the Zerg attack, though. Not enough energy here for storms on those Templar. Banelings! My god, there's a lot of Banelings. Yeah, we just went for 60-something Banelings. And there it is. GG gets cold. And even though I feel like I was cheering for MaxPax maybe a little bit too much, we do go to game number 3, so that's pretty cool. Our final game of today, it takes place on the map Dragon Scales. Alrighty. Cybernetics Core finishing up right now. I fast-forwarded through the first 2 minutes of the game, so we can see what sort of tech it's going to be from Protals right away. Serral, by the way, has been playing that, well, 15 supply hatchery every single game so far, which is very interesting. It's Warp Gates, together with an Adept, and no tech whatsoever here for yet. I mean, this has to be a Stargate, no? Yeah, that Stargate is late, though. That Stargate could have literally started like 20 seconds earlier. Interesting. Not entirely sure what to make of that. Maybe MaxPax is saying, yo, I know that you're not really gonna take damage from my very first Oracle anyway. So I'm just gonna prioritize my Adept production for now. And yeah, maybe get a... Ooh, okay, maybe get a kill or two with that. That would be nice. Shouldn't really happen, though. Okay, 1 kill. Adept is gonna be able to get out. Yep. Oh, my god. Brenda, you could have at least tried. I think you actually could have had to kill Brenda. Okay. Stargate. It's finished up. Oracle, yeah, still coming up. Serral somehow, some way managed to sneak a Zergling across the map. I guess that explains why there weren't that many units here available. Nice micro over there on that Spore, but still, this is a rough start right here for Serral. I would like this a whole lot better, though, if at least one of those Adepts manages to stay alive. One of the problems you run into, okay, yeah, is that taking a third Nexus is going to be difficult if you don't have at least one Adept. So you need something protecting the natural, and then you need something protecting the third base as well. Problem is, you never really know exactly how many Zerglings there are available, and there's definitely a chance the Zerg was a little bit worried earlier, like, ah, no, there's a whole lot of Adepts in my main base, I'll just make 24 links. I mean, that's what Dark can do at any moment. And it's pretty unpredictable. Anyways, third Nexus here has come up. And because there are still some units available, I don't really see what Serral can do about it. He is running some links across the map, but I do believe that these are going to be a-okay. Yeah. These buildings, that is. Okay. MaxPax decides to fly back home with the Oracle. So this is actually some interesting Oracle behavior, okay? I'm now a StarCraft 2 biologist. This Oracle behavior is interesting, mostly because most Protoss players are like, get the Oracle out immediately and start dealing as much damage as possible right now. That is not the way that MaxPax is using his Oracles. So, I guess he's accepting the fact that, against Serral, your first Oracle probably won't get much damage done, so you may as well delay it. And if you may as well delay it, you really don't have to show up that early. You can still get a bit of a... Okay, that was actually disjointed. He could have gotten at least 2 more workers there. Yeah, if you're gonna delay him, you may as well just snipe a little bit of creep here and there. You may as well just make sure your threat next is super safe, and then eventually you can start dealing some harassment damage. It is absolutely critical, though, to take as little damage on these Oracles as possible, because he clearly intends on keeping them around for as long as he can. There's the Blink follow-up, together with the +1 ground weapons. We should see the ground armor here very soon as well. The Protoss Carapace. Okay. 6 workers. Honestly, not a great start right here for Serral. There are many games where Protoss does play the more hectic version of the Oracle opener, and they will actually get like no kills at all. This is also really lovely work right here from Serral, although I say that, yeah, it looks like he wiggled his way out of there, and this may actually turn out to be much better for the Protoss than I thought it would. Can you get one more? Ah, no. Just barely not. Guys, it doesn't happen very often that I find myself cheering not for Serral. There have been people that have called me out of being on being a Serral fanboy, but I find myself not being a very unbiased commentator in this game. How many times do you think these two have faced against each other? You know what? I'm actually gonna look it up. Give me a sec. They've played 18 series overall. You know what? That's actually a little bit more than I thought it would have been. Yeah, a lot of the Alpha X tournaments, a lot of Wardy tournaments as well. Apparently, even though Serral doesn't really play, at least in my mind, he doesn't really play that many offline tournaments. He has been playing a lot more this year so far. So maybe they've faced against each other a little bit more than I realized. Okay. I wouldn't have been surprised. It was like 5 series, you know? Only a very small amount. A little bit of panic right there. Coming out of our Protoss player. Forced to re-wall is natural. But as long as you don't F2 all your units around, Hero, Harstem, and all the other Protoss players I've casted recently that just constantly have Zerglings in a natural, as long as you don't use the all army hotkey, should be okay. Should be okay. +2, started up. 4th Nexus, coming up. Serral, though, has already transitioned towards his standard mid-game. So this is what he loves to do, right? So Roaches, together with mailing speed, +2 melee to one-shot those probes, and then usually, well, more workers than he's on right now, but usually at least 75 or so workers to constantly be able to send those Roaches, Ravagers, and Zerglings out into the map. So despite the early game chaos, despite quite a few worker kills, I think Serral is feeling pretty good about himself in this game so far. One thing, though, to note here is that the creep spread is not as good as we should normally expect it. A lot of that has to do with the fact that MaxPax is always out on the map with his army. So it's actually quite difficult to get that, that value out of the creep. I really believe that we should probably step up on that department just a little bit. There's a lot of good locations, though, for Banelings to roll by into this base here on the left side of the map. Same for this base here in the middle. A lot of angles that can be used. Obviously, with some good SimCity, though, you can really plug your bases quite well, too. But usually, if you plug your bases too well, you make sure that there's no Banelings rolling in at all. You also have no escape for your probes if they suddenly, well, for example, just kill one of the gateways or one of the pylons and they just roll straight through it. So that can also be a little bit scary. Robotics Bay here coming up for the Protoss player, as well as the second Robo facility. So we will be going into some higher tier units here once again. In the previous game, okay, it was Colossi, yeah? We're once again gonna go straight into Colossus. Interesting. Most Protoss seem to favor Disruptors at this point in time, but not MaxPax. Zealots here on the right side of the map do get caught. And here's that Stalker shenanigans once again. Yeah, that's a lot of Protoss though this time around. There is an Observer over here that sees everything. I actually think this pullback here is very important. How many Oracles do we still have? Just the 2 of them. One of them ended up falling. Okay, we're gonna opt for the base here in the center of the map instead, it seems. Prism on the right side, trying to just deal as much damage as possible. Create some distractions. Stasis wards are also actually so important. Little Zealot warp in. And I think it's time to continue the dance. Observer, by the way, has been sniped here. Oh, Serral actually setting up, a bit of a surround. He was thinking about pulling the trigger there, but not gonna happen. Nexus here on the high ground, not going to happen. And here's that little situation once again, man. Lovely work. Really well done right there by MaxPax, making sure that this doesn't really deal a lot of damage. Now we have Zealots on the right side of the map too. Warping in the main base. Okay. This game at this point is very even. Beautiful. Beautiful. Aggression all over the map. MaxPax's APM is actually a little bit lower than for most of these guys. Ooh, okay. Thought one of the Colossi was gonna get sacrificed for the greater good there. MaxPax's APM, I mean, Zerg does have, you know, repeat rates and you know, we all know the rapid firing and everything, right? So they have a bunch of ways that, well, it's not on purpose, but it does inflate their APM a little. So Serral's probably closer to like 400 rather than 461 or maybe 380 or so. I feel like that was maybe a slight limitation in game 1 of this series. So if MaxPax can tighten that up a little bit in, well, game 3, I think he's got a very good shot at just winning against Serral in a straight up game. +3/+3, man. I feel like these upgrades are so fast these days. Okay, so Serral's been building up 2 Vipers. The idea is to abduct those Colossi, but yeah, High Templar are available with feedback. There's no Storm available just yet, but he can feedback every single one of those Vipers, and that means that the Colossi managed to stand tall. Nicely done right there. MaxPax even now, yeah, feeling ambitious, going a little off creep. You love to see it too. No Baneling roll by this time around. We do have a few Zealots though. Looks like the Prism also did get destroyed, but the main army here from MaxPax still is looking powerful. Zealots now warped in at that base all the way at the top of the screen. Okay, a couple of Banelings here coming in from the back, trying to get those High Templar. Serral knows very well that Storm is not going to be too far behind. MaxPax at 90 workers. 86 drones available for the Zerg. Ultralisk Cavern coming up here for Serral. And there's the Skytles transition. This is actually disjointed. Ultras are good against the army that Protoss has right now. Yeah, good is maybe a little bit too strong of a word. It's decent against the unit composition that Protoss has right now. I don't think this is going to be too efficient for these Banes either, actually. Nope. Ultras are good in the current moment-ish. They're not going to be particularly great, though, in the coming moments here that Protoss has got prepared. So there's the +1 air weapons already coming up. Okay, he's actually just pushing forward. A lot of Banelings do get forced to be cancelled. That was actually a good snipe right there by MaxPax. A lot of lost minerals on the side of the Zerg, a lot of lost gas as well. One of the Queens, look at him, camping outside of the natural of the Zerg. There we go, Queens once again misrallied. Serral's trying to just put out all of the fires that are, well, burning down his bases. But apparently this intersection over here, there's a lot of traffic, right? A lot of units just simply get destroyed in that area. Okay, Storms are available though. There's a good abduction as well, but it does cost a lot of Banelings to get rid of that. Is there enough for the Protoss player to stay alive over here? The Banelings just rolling down wherever they can. 8 drones in the meantime are falling on the right side of the map, but I'm gonna keep my camera over here. Okay, most of the heavy hitters here for Protoss have been destroyed. Zealots over here will be killed as well. Ultras are coming up at the same time though, as carriers are building. Now, Ultras are not a complete waste. Even when carriers are building, right? Because they are still capable. There's a mama ship too. They're still capable of destroying that ground army of Protoss. But with a mothership above, look at that. We have 2 Colossus, 2 carriers, a mothership, and a whole bunch of Templar coming up. Yeah, I don't think this base is gonna happen just yet. Maybe this counterattack from Serral though can actually get some work done. Oracles from the early game, still around, still kicking. Ultra, by the way, does not have Chitinous Plating yet until just now. Although it's not like the Oracles care with their spell damage. Okay. Can the Zerglings actually kill this Nexus? Yeah, I think they will. Yep. Linked with Adrenal, +3 melee. They don't mess around. Okay, good counter attack right there by Serral. But he still does not know about the Skytles transition. So, yeah, the carriers are just mostly hanging out over here for a while. He has not actually seen any of the carriers just yet. And does Serral have a Spire? He does not. He does not have a Spire. These carriers are gonna catch him off guard. He still has not seen the Spire. He still has not built a Spire. He needs to make one ASAP. Currently, he's got 8 queens for anti-air. That's it. Sure, you can abduct the mama ship, and people can type -400 in the comment section, but you do actually need to have some sort of follow-up too, right? Okay. So look at him. He's just hiding it. Okay, now at this point, they get spotted. Now at this point, Serral must know. Good warp in over there as well. The Banelings do try to run. Okay, into that probe count. This Nexus over here up north will once again get destroyed. Now the Spire starts up. I'm actually very concerned right here for the next 2 minutes or so for Serral. We've got ourselves 5 carriers. We've got ourselves the Mama Ship. The Mama Ship is a detector, right? Well, it's not a detector. It's a cloaker. It cloaks all of the units. Why is it not a detector, by the way? I just realized that. That's a bit funky. Oldest technology, but apparently no detector. Anyways, this is gonna be a scary attack. Yeah, we have 8 queens. That's it. We have 8 queens to deal with this many carriers. There's more carriers on the back of this. Serral wants to save money right now to suddenly whip out like 20 Corruptors minimum. Mama Ship cloaking all these units. Yeah, look at him. There's no detection anymore over here. Well, there's one Overseer. Can we target it down? Good targeting right there by MaxPax. Parasitic bomb on all of these carriers, but they don't really care. They have so much hit points. They don't really bother that much with the slight amount of damage from the Parabomb. It's only 120 damage. They don't care. That's barely their shields. Okay, Spire is done at this point. Can Serral actually afford it? I don't think he can. He's been doing a phenomenal job, though. Countering all of those bases. MaxPax still at 67 workers, but I actually think this worker count is fine for the current unit composition that he's playing. Like, it was at 90-something workers earlier, and that was good when he was playing Stalker Zealot. I think this amount of workers that he's got right now is a lot more appropriate for a Skytles force. Look at that. 4 more carriers are coming up. A lot of the probes are being destroyed over here, which I guess is nice. Chitinous Plating, by the way, pretty good on Ultras, eh? You can see how long it takes for that army for these carriers, I guess, to actually kill the Ultra. They don't even finish the job. Serral going for a full-on counterattack. He's trying to get that Protoss army off his back. He recognizes that he can't really fight it, but MaxPax is realizing the same thing too. He's just going straight into the main base. This is the soft underbelly of the Zerg. This is where all of the tech is located. He's hunting down the Corruptors with his Stalkers even. So this is before any of those carriers really even get attacked. Zerglings and Ultras, though, in the meantime, on the other side of the map, trying to break into the third base, trying to break into the natural. But there it is. It's MaxPax who obtains the victory over Serral 2-1, facing Serral head-on. No tricks, no shenanigans, straight up macro games. If you enjoyed watching this video, please take the 1 second that it takes to hit the like button down below. And if you really liked it, I try to upload new StarCraft videos every day. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.